I'm using a throwaway because my sister knows my main account. My sister and I have been dealing with a lot of family grief this past year. We lost our dad to a heart attack 11 months ago, and then mom passed away from cancer just 3 months back. It's been devastating for both of us. The situation I'm dealing with started about 2 months ago. My sister and I had agreed to go through our parents' house together on a specific weekend to divide their belongings and decide what to keep, donate, or sell. We had this date planned for weeks. We both took time off work and everything. But 3 days before our scheduled date, I got a call from our family friend who lives near my parents' house, saying they saw my sister loading boxes into a moving truck. I immediately called my sister, and she acted like it was no big deal. She said she was just getting a head start because there was so much to go through. I was upset, but tried to stay calm, and she promised she was saving plenty of items for me to look through. When I finally got to the house that weekend, almost everything of value was gone. My sister had left me a single cardboard box with some random knickknacks, mostly broken or worthless stuff like chipped mugs and outdated electronics. Meanwhile, she had taken all of Mom's jewelry, every single family photo album, Dad's entire coin collection, and several specific items I had previously mentioned wanting to remember them by. I confronted her and she got defensive, saying she deserved more items because she needed the comfort more than I did. She claimed I was being selfish for even bringing it up while she was grieving. After a heated argument, I decided to let it go for the time being because I was too emotionally drained to fight about it. Fast forward to now, I'm 5 months pregnant with my first child, which makes losing my parents even harder because they'll never meet their grandchild. My grandparents are still alive but elderly, and they're moving to assisted living next month. My husband and I are buying their house, which works out with the baby coming. The house has 3 bedrooms, and one of them has been preserved as my mom's childhood bedroom. My grandparents never changed it after she moved out. Since we'll need to convert this room into a nursery before the baby arrives, I went over last week to assess what needed to be done. While looking through the room, I discovered it contained the last remaining keepsakes from my mom's childhood and teen years. There were handwritten journals, a collection of first edition books she loved, some jewelry my grandmother had been saving for both my sister and me, and some handmade baby clothes and blankets that my grandmother had preserved. These were the kind of sentimental items I had mentioned wanting before my sister emptied our parents' house. As I was looking through everything, I remembered how my sister had always been my parents' favorite. She got more attention, more gifts, more support. I was always expected to be the responsible one who didn't need as much. Even during their final days, my parents seemed to worry more about how my sister would cope without them than about me. So I made a decision. Without telling my sister, I spent the entire weekend cleaning out the bedroom. I packed up all the meaningful items, the journals, books, baby clothes, and several heirloom items my grandmother had been saving for both of us. I found letters between my parents from when they first met, with details about their relationship neither of us had known. There were also photo albums from my mom's childhood that hadn't been in my parents' house when my sister cleared it out. My husband helped me move everything to our apartment, though he did express some concern about not telling my sister. He understands why I felt justified after what happened with our parents' house, but he's worried about causing more family drama. 2 days later, my sister called me. She mentioned she was planning to visit our grandparents' house to look through Mom's old room before we mess with it. I kept my voice steady and told her I'd already cleaned out the room to prepare for renovation. I didn't mention anything about what I'd found or kept. There was a long pause on the line, and then she lost it. She started yelling that I had no right to go through those things without her, that I was selfish and underhanded. She insisted she had first right to our mother's childhood items since she was closer to Mom. She kept saying I had gone behind her back to steal family heirlooms. I reminded her that she had done the same thing with our parents' house, but she said that was completely different because she was in shock then. She demanded I bring everything to her house immediately so she could go through it all. I refused. I told her I had already sorted everything and that after what happened last time, I wasn't willing to risk losing more family memories. I explained that I'm creating memory boxes for my child so they can know something about the grandparents they'll never meet. This made her more furious. She told me I was using my pregnancy as an excuse to be selfish and that our grandparents would be disappointed in me. Before hanging up, she said this wasn't over and that she'd be talking to our grandparents about my theft. Sure enough, my grandmother called the next day, upset. She said my sister had been telling her how I'd stolen everything from Mom's old room. My grandmother suggested I should have included my sister, but when I explained what had happened with our parents' house, she went quiet. Finally, she said she understood why I'd acted as I did, but that families should try to share memories. My grandfather later called separately and told me he understood my position. He said my sister had always been coddled too much and sometimes needed firm boundaries. He suggested I keep the truly personal items that matter to me and my child's connection to our family history, but perhaps consider sharing duplicates of photos or copies of journals eventually. I'm trying to focus on preparing the nursery and staying calm for the baby's sake, but my sister keeps sending angry texts demanding an inventory of what I took. My husband thinks I should block her number until after the baby comes, but I'm worried about causing a permanent family rift, so that's where things stand now. I know taking everything without telling her wasn't the most mature move, but after what she did with our parents' things, I felt I had no choice. Thanks for reading this whole saga. Should I stand my ground about keeping these items for my child, or find some way to compromise with my sister even though she never compromised with me? Now for the first update. Wow. Thank you all so much for the responses on my last post about the situation with my sister and our mom's childhood bedroom. Honestly, didn't expect this many people to care about my family drama. For those asking for an update, it's been about 2 weeks since everything went down, and things have only gotten more complicated. My sister has been absolutely blowing up my phone since she found out I cleared out Mom's childhood bedroom. I'm talking 15 plus calls a day and probably 30 plus texts. My husband actually suggested I change my number. I've been trying to ignore most of her messages and focus on getting the nursery ready, but it's been really difficult not to get stressed out about the whole situation, which I know isn't good for the baby. Several of you mentioned in comments that pregnancy hormones might be making me more emotional about these keepsakes, and that's probably true, but I still think I'm being reasonable here. I decided to take the advice many of you gave about setting clear boundaries with my sister rather than just ignoring her. I sent her a calm text explaining that after what happened with our parents' house, I needed time to sort through everything properly before we could discuss dividing anything. I told her I was creating memory boxes for my child and would be happy to talk about sharing certain items once I'd cataloged everything. This seemed like a reasonable compromise to me. Her response was just a string of angry emojis, followed by, "You won't get away with this." I showed the message to my husband, who suggested I just block her temporarily until things cool down. I was considering it, but before I could make a decision, our doorbell rang around 7 p.m. last Thursday. When I looked through the peephole, there was my sister standing in the hallway, looking absolutely furious. I opened the door just a crack, not wanting to let her in while I was home alone. My husband was working late. Before I could even say hello, she pushed past me into our apartment. "Where is it all?" she demanded, already heading for our spare room, where she somehow knew I'd stored everything from Mom's bedroom. For those asking in the comments, no, I never told her where I put everything, so either she was guessing or someone else told her. I followed her into the room, struggling to keep up because, 5 months pregnant here, and my sister has always walked super fast even when we were kids. By the time I got there, she was already opening boxes and pulling items out, tossing things aside that didn't interest her. "I can't believe you took all this without telling me," she said, digging through a box containing Mom's childhood journals. She grabbed several of the leather-bound books and shoved them into her purse. "Mom would have wanted me to have these." When I tried to take them back, she turned away from me and said, "You already got Dad's watches, didn't you?" "I know you did. That's the only reason you do this behind my back." I felt this wave of confusion and anger wash over me. Seriously, what was she talking about? I told her I had never received any of Dad's watches. The ones he had specifically told us both would be divided between us after he was gone. This was actually the first I'd heard about the watches since Dad died. "They weren't valuable anyway," she said, quickly changing the subject back to the items from the bedroom. As we argued, she started gathering more things. photo albums, a jewelry box, and several keepsake containers, piling them up by the door to take with her. I realized she was planning to leave with half the stuff I'd carefully packed up, and honestly, she was picking all the most valuable and meaningful items. I positioned myself in the doorway and told her that after what happened with our parents' house, I wasn't letting her take anything without us discussing it fairly first. I reminded her that she had literally left me with a box of broken mugs and outdated electronics while taking everything of value from our parents' home. To those of you who suggested in comments that maybe my sister just didn't realize what she was doing, trust me, she knew exactly what she was doing. My sister has always been able to cry on command, a skill she perfected as a teenager to get out of trouble. She started sobbing about how cruel and vindictive I was being and how I'd always been jealous of her relationship with our parents. I was about to respond when my husband came home from work. He looked between us, immediately assessed the situation. He's dealt with my sister's meltdowns before, and gently suggested we all take time to cool down and discuss this when everyone was calmer. He was clearly concerned about my stress levels, which I appreciated. My sister grabbed her purse with Mom's journals inside and headed for the door, pausing only to say, "This isn't over. Grandma and Grandpa are going to be so disappointed in how selfish you're being." After she left, I sat down on the couch, feeling completely drained. Pregnancy exhaustion plus family drama is not a fun combination. My husband brought me some water and helped me check all the boxes to see what else my sister might have taken while I wasn't looking. That's when I discovered several small items were missing, including a vintage brooch my mother used to wear on special occasions and a necklace my grandmother had specifically told me was intended for my future daughter. I hadn't even seen my sister take these items, which means she must have pocketed them while I wasn't looking. To the person who commented that I might be overreacting about my sister's behavior, this is exactly why I don't trust her. I immediately called my grandmother to tell her what happened. She sounded tired on the phone. She's 82, and the move to assisted living has been hard on her. She said she understood why I had acted as I did in taking the items from the bedroom without telling my sister, but she also felt I should have included my sister somehow. Family should share memories, she said, echoing what she'd told me earlier. But when I mentioned the missing jewelry, especially the necklace meant for my daughter, her tone changed completely. My grandfather got on the phone after that, which almost never happens. He hates talking on the phone. He told me in no uncertain terms that he supported my decision to protect the family heirlooms. "Your sister has always needed clearer boundaries," he said, his voice stronger than I'd heard it in months. "You stand your ground about this. Those things are for your child, too." I've been cataloging everything from my mom's bedroom since then, taking photos of each item and making notes about their significance. Thanks to everyone who suggested this, it's actually been therapeutic. My sister has been telling other family members that I stole everything, and I've been getting texts from cousins asking why I'm being so difficult about sharing. Classic flying monkeys, as several commenters pointed out. I'm trying to focus on preparing the nursery and staying calm for the baby, but it's hard when my phone buzzes every few hours with another angry message. My husband has been amazing through all of this, helping me organize everything and running interference with family when I need a break. To the person who asked if my husband supports me in this, 100% yes, he's my rock. I'm still not sure what to do about my sister's behavior or her apparent theft of our dad's watches that were meant to be divided between us. Part of me wants to confront her directly about it, but another part just wants to focus on my pregnancy and my immediate family for now. Thank you all again for your support with this family keepsake situation. It's made a world of difference knowing I'm not alone in feeling justified about protecting these memories for my child. Now for the second update. Wow, I can't believe it's been a week since my last post. Thanks to everyone for all the supportive messages and advice. I've read every single comment, even though I haven't had time to respond to most of them. So much has happened since my sister stormed out of our apartment with Mom's journals. The family drama has officially become extremely complicated, minus the evil twins and amnesia so far. My phone has been filled with messages from extended family members. Apparently, my sister has been telling everyone who will listen that I stole family heirlooms and am hoarding them all for myself. I've gotten texts from cousins I haven't spoken to in years saying things like, "Family is supposed to share," and "Your mother would be so disappointed." Fun fact, most of these people barely spoke to my mom when she was alive, but they're suddenly experts on what she would have wanted. My aunt even called me yesterday to suggest I should be the bigger person and just give my sister whatever she wants to keep the peace. I tried explaining that my sister already took everything valuable from our parents' house and left me with literal broken mugs, but she just kept saying, "That's all in the past now, and you're about to be a mother. You should set a good example," because apparently being a good mom means allowing others to mistreat you? No thanks. I was still processing all this family interference when my grandmother called. She seemed really upset, which immediately made me worried about her health. Turns out she was calling about the missing necklace that was meant for my daughter, the one my sister pocketed during her sudden visit. My grandmother explained that she had specifically labeled certain items for each of us years ago, with clear intentions about who should get what. During our conversation, she casually mentioned something that surprised me. "I hope you found your grandfather's watches in the bedroom closet. Your father always said he wanted you and your sister to split those eggs." I felt stunned. These were the watches my sister had accused me of taking, the ones she claimed weren't valuable anyway, when I said I'd never seen them. I immediately checked all the boxes from Mom's bedroom again, which took forever because I'm being super careful with everything, but there were no watches anywhere. It suddenly clicked that my sister must have already taken them, either during her brief raid on my apartment or maybe even earlier without anyone knowing. The more I thought about it, the more her accusation seemed like classic projection. She thought I took the watches because she's the one who would have done exactly that. After reading so many of your comments about narcissistic behavior patterns, this makes perfect sense. 3 days after this revelation, my sister texted the family group chat announcing she was organizing a family meeting at our grandparents' house to resolve the keepsake situation once and for all. She made it sound like she was doing everyone a favor by graciously offering to settle things. I was already suspicious, but when she mentioned that my husband and I should come alone because this is just immediate family business, I realized she was manipulating the situation. When we arrived at my grandparents' house, which will be ours in just a few weeks, my sister was already there with her boyfriend and 2 cousins who have always taken her side in everything since we were kids. So much for immediate family only. I immediately texted my husband, who was parking the car, warning him about the surprise meeting. Thank you to everyone who suggested documenting everything. I've been keeping detailed notes and timestamps of all interactions. As soon as everyone was seated in the grandparents' living room, my sister became very formal and started presenting her case. She had actually prepared a list. I'm not kidding, an actual typed list of all the items she believed were rightfully hers. This included things I've cherished since childhood, like the porcelain music box Mom gave me for my 10th birthday. Her justification was that since Mom bought it, it should be considered Mom's property that needs to be fairly divided. She went to great lengths to justify her claims. When she finally paused for breath, I asked about Dad's watches and the missing jewelry. She immediately shifted in her seat and said, "We're not here to talk about that. You're just trying to change the subject because you know you're wrong." My grandmother spoke up. "Actually, I'd like to know about the watches too. Those were meant for both of you girls." My sister became visibly upset and then composed herself. She claimed Dad had given all the watches to her before he died because he knew OP wouldn't appreciate them properly. According to her, this happened during a private conversation that conveniently no one else witnessed. I don't often stand up for myself in family situations, as many commenters pointed out in my last post, but something in me snapped. I pulled out my phone and showed everyone a video from 2 Christmases ago where Dad was showing off his collection and specifically said, "Someday you girls will split these between you." They're not just timepieces, they're important to him. The room got very quiet after that. My sister stared at me intently. Her boyfriend, who I've never liked, honestly, jumped in to help by suggesting we should all focus on the future, not the past. He actually had the nerve to say I didn't need these family mementos since I was starting a new family anyway, implying that having a baby erases my connection to my parents. Several of you mentioned in comments that my sister might be jealous of my pregnancy, and I'm starting to think you might be right. That's when my grandfather cleared his throat. In his calm but firm voice, the one that always made us behave as kids, he said the most meaningful thing anyone has said throughout this whole ordeal. He talked about how both my sister and I deserved to maintain our connections to our parents, and that the right approach was to create a fair inventory of all remaining family items so nothing else would go missing. The way he emphasized that nothing else would go missing while looking directly at my sister made it clear he wasn't buying her innocent act. I swear I almost applauded. My sister couldn't handle being called out, even indirectly. She grabbed her purse, muttered something about being attacked by my own family, and stormed out. Her boyfriend followed, looking annoyed that their plan wasn't working. My cousins sat there awkwardly for a minute before making excuses about having to get home for dinner, even though it was only 2 p.m. After everyone else left, my grandmother revealed something that made this whole situation even worse. She told me she had been saving specific items for each sister in labeled boxes in the attic, but recently discovered that someone had gone through them and rearranged things. She seemed embarrassed, suggesting she should have protected these things better. It broke my heart to see her blame herself for my sister's actions. I helped my grandparents check the attic storage, which was difficult at 5 months pregnant. Climbing those narrow stairs was not fun. What we found confirmed our suspicions. The boxes labeled for me were mostly empty, while the ones for my sister were untouched. It confirmed what I've felt my entire life. My sister takes, and I'm left with the scraps. My grandfather suggested changing the locks on the house until my husband and I move in. He was worried about more items going missing before they complete their move to assisted living next week. After reading your comments about security cameras, we're installing those too. I'm trying to focus on the positives. We're getting the house ready, the nursery is coming along, and my husband has been incredibly supportive through all this. He's the one who reminded me that we're creating our own family traditions now, regardless of what my sister takes or doesn't take. Several of you mentioned this perspective in comments, and it's been really helpful. I'll try to respond to comments, but I'm meeting with a family therapist tomorrow to figure out how to handle all this stress without it affecting the baby. My doctor wasn't happy with my blood pressure at my last appointment. I'm not sure what happens next with my sister. Part of me wants to confront her directly about the watches and missing jewelry, but another part just wants to let it go for my own sanity. Either way, I've learned some hard lessons about family dynamics through all this. Thank you all for being my sounding board and reality check when I needed it most. Now for the final update. Final update on the family keepsake battle with my sister. It's finally over. First off, thank you to everyone who's been following this mess and offering advice. Your support helped me stay sane through one of the most stressful periods of my life. It's been 3 weeks since that awkward family meeting at my grandparents' house. Feels like 3 years, honestly. My grandparents have successfully moved into their assisted living facility, and my husband and I have started moving into their house. I've been focusing on setting up the nursery and trying not to stress too much about the ongoing sister situation. My doctor was pretty clear about keeping my blood pressure down. Last weekend, while unpacking boxes in what will be our master bedroom, I discovered something completely unexpected. I was organizing some clothes when I noticed a floorboard that looked slightly different from the others. It wasn't obviously loose or anything, but something about it caught my attention. Blame it on all those mystery novels I've been reading during pregnancy insomnia. When I pressed down on one end, the other end popped up just enough that I could get my fingers underneath. Inside was a small wooden box containing some of my grandmother's jewelry and a handwritten letter. The letter explained that these items were being saved for whichever granddaughter shows the kindness and responsibility to deserve them. Mini update before I continue. My blood pressure is finally back to normal levels, and the baby is measuring right on track. The family therapist I've been seeing has been incredibly helpful with setting boundaries and processing all this drama. Best money I've ever spent. Seriously. I immediately called my grandmother to tell her about finding her hidden treasures. She actually laughed and told me this was her insurance policy against items being taken without permission. She'd been hiding special things there for decades. Sneaky but effective, I have to admit. The very next day, I swear the universe has a twisted sense of timing, My sister showed up unannounced at the house with a moving van and two friends I'd never met before. I was alone since my husband was at work. She cheerfully informed me that our grandparents had promised her furniture and keepsakes from the house before we changed everything. When I questioned this, she pulled out a handwritten note with our grandmother's signature, giving her permission to take any remaining items of sentimental value. Something felt off about the whole situation, so I called my grandparents while my sister and her friends started wandering through the house. Pointing at things they wanted to take, my grandmother confirmed she had signed a note, but it was only meant for specific childhood toys and school projects my sister had left at their house years ago, not for anything else in the home. By the time I got off the phone to explain this, her friends were already carrying small antiques and artwork from the living room to the van. I told them to stop until we clarified things, but they basically ignored me and kept going. I texted my husband, who said he was on his way home immediately. He's honestly been my rock through all of this. My husband arrived in record time and physically stood in front of an antique cabinet that belonged to my great-grandmother, refusing to let them take it. I was trying to stay calm for the baby's sake, but inside I was absolutely livid and scared, if I'm being honest. Things escalated when my sister suddenly headed toward the nursery, saying there were still things in there she wanted to check on. I don't know what came over me, but I physically blocked the doorway. Maybe it was pregnancy hormones, maybe it was just finally standing up for myself, but I wasn't letting her into that room. "You need to leave now," I said. "We need to talk about the things you've already taken from our parents' house and from the attic here, not take more." That's when she completely lost it. She started shouting that I always got everything and was the perfect daughter, while she was just trying to keep mementos of parents who actually loved her more. In her anger, she let something slip that I hadn't known before. She admitted that she took items early from our parents' house because she had found out that our mother had left specific instructions about certain heirlooms going to me. Apparently, Mom had written a letter before she passed away, detailing which items should go to each of us. My sister found it while going through papers and decided to clear everything out before anyone else could see it. Talk about a shocking confession. I was still processing this bombshell when my grandfather arrived with a man I didn't recognize. Turns out the man was security from their assisted living facility. He calmly but firmly told my sister and her friends they needed to return the items they'd already removed and leave the property immediately. As they reluctantly carried things back inside, my grandfather pulled out a folder. It was a formal list he and my grandmother had created years ago, detailing every significant family item and which granddaughter it was intended for. Looking at it, I was surprised to see it showed a surprisingly equal division, despite all my sister's claims about deserving more. My sister looked at the inventory sheet before handing it back without a word. She and her friends left without taking anything, but also without acknowledging any wrongdoing. After they left, my grandfather hugged me for a long time. He apologized for not stepping in sooner and said he and my grandmother should have been more direct about their intentions for family items from the beginning. He also handed me a sealed envelope containing the letter my mother had written before she passed, the one my sister had found and hidden. Reading my mother's words about why certain items were meant for me brought me to tears. Happy ones for once. In the 3 days since this showdown, my sister hasn't contacted me or anyone else in the family. My grandmother tells me she tried calling her once, but got no answer. I'm not sure what happens next with our relationship, but for the first time in a long time, I feel at peace with the whole situation. The truth is out. The items are where they belong, and I can focus on preparing for my baby. Edit. A few people have asked what was in my mom's letter. Without sharing too many personal details, she basically explained that she wanted to divide things as evenly as possible between us sisters. But there were certain items that had special meaning for specific reasons. For example, she left me her wedding jewelry because I had always admired it growing up and asked about the stories behind each piece. She left my sister her collection of art and books because my sister shared her passion for those things. It wasn't about playing favorites. It was about honoring the unique connection she had with each of us. Reading her words made me realize she had put so much thought into these decisions, which makes my sister's actions even more hurtful, but also helps me understand her insecurity a bit better. If anyone finds themselves in a similar situation with family heirlooms and inheritance drama, remember that documentation and clear communication are absolutely crucial. And most importantly, no object, no matter how sentimental, is worth destroying your peace of mind or your health.